Welcome to another episode of the Sports Sentiment. I am your host, Nick Urias, and we are back once again talking football and not college football, folks, the National Football League, because the NFL is officially back after one full week of chaos, carnage, a little overreaction, and everything else in between. We finally got the sport back. Sundays are the day for the NFL. You know, some things just don't change. And in my household, that's the way just things kind of go, just based on, the fall time and the fall season. As crappy as the games may be, or at least that's been my, just general sentiment the past couple years within the National Football League. We actually got some beauties in the NFL this past weekend. And I have to say, just first and foremost, because I am gonna touch on my just week one takeaways after overreaction week. And I do have a couple overreactions, but I don't think some of them are not far-fetched. But I have to say, I think we are going to get a bounce back year from the NFL, just as far as quality of games and from an entertainment standpoint on the football field, the back and forth primetime battles. I don't think Thursday nights will be as bad as they were in years past. We're going to get, I would say, just overall the body of work and the entertainment aspect of these games, they're going to be much better this year. That's just general vibes from me, heading into the year. Just with all the different storylines and such. And after watching, the games in week one, I was thoroughly impressed. Like, we did not really have too many blowouts, which I would say we don't want blowouts and we don't want low scoring slugfest because this is the NFL. I understand I am one of these people that every once in a good while, I do want my fair share of good like defensive slugfest, like the 13-10 type games. And especially on prime time, like a good divisional battle, like a Steelers Ravens. I want it to be 13-10. But if you've been keeping your tabs on the NFL, which I know a lot of people that are listening and just generally people do because it's the biggest brand that we have, just in sports right now. And that's only going to continue to grow. We haven't had the greatest product. And I've talked about this, especially if you've been around consistently listening to the podcast. I say listening because we were pretty much NFL heavy prior to moving to YouTube, and expanding there, I should say. I've always had a problem with just like the NFL product and just the way that they manufacture the primetime schedule and things within that nature, and why you have so many crappy games. And, a combination of that is, large markets and, with the New York teams and such, and how they've just been tremendously bad since I've been alive. But overall, I think it was just a combination of bad quarterback play, young quarterbacks still trying to leave an imprint and adjust to the league and the speed of the game. Well, at the same time, you had this transition where, the Tom Brady's, the Drew Breeses, the Peyton Mannings, all of the guys that were so, recognizable and were so dominant for all those years, they were kind of gone. They all retired. Like, that era retired, and then we were kind of stuck in this 4-year window where it was really just Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen really dominating. And it wasn't really until last year where we really seen like just all of these rookie quarterbacks and all of these young quarterbacks just kind of really make a name for themselves and really make an adjustment to the league. And I think you're going to see what I'm trying to get to here is the NFL, I think, is going to be in a much better place just because they got so many young, marketable faces that are actually good now. I look at a guy like Jaden Daniels. I'm a big believer in Michael Penix Jr. There's some people still believe in Caleb Williams. I think JJ McCarthy has a chance to be very legit. Like, there is just these young quarterbacks are going to take off this year. And I think you're going to still have, the combinations of, like we said, that the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes, and the Lamar Jacksons that are now clearly are on that tier 1 level now. And, those guys are going to continue to dominate and be the face, of the league and such. But I think we're going to finally start to get a little bit more consistency, and which I think just provides a whole lot more chaos in a lot of these games. So, NFL week 1 was definitely an entertaining watch from start to finish. There was a few games here and there where you're like, okay, but I was thoroughly impressed just with just the competitive nature within these games, and that at least I know a lot of the games were relatively low scoring. They weren't all of these offensive outbursts this week. But I was thoroughly impressed with what we got in week 1, just overall in the body of work that we had. With all that being said, we're going to go through a large majority of the games. In fact, I want to kind of touch on all of them. Just very briefly, my thoughts, things going forward, things like that. While at the same time, because we never really did like a preview of the AFC and NFC, just kind of the general trajectory on where I think these teams have a chance to go. Especially those teams where I think a lot of people and just like the general public is kind of on the fence about. I have some strong opinions about some teams out there, and some of them didn't deliver week 1, and I'm excited to get to it. As far as, just the Thursday and Friday night games, we had that Cowboys-Eagles game, division rivalry matchup in Philly. Of course, the Eagles won the Super Bowl last year. They had their little banner night. Philly lost their offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore. He took the New Orleans Saints job. I have to say, you got to give Jalen Hurts just, I guess, some credit, to the point where he's like on like his 3rd or 4th different offensive coordinator now, like in the last 4-year span, which is pretty ridiculous, by the way. And he hasn't really complained about it all too much. And, because you already know you get a lot of egos within these NFL rooms, especially within the quarterbacks, as they try to make it about themselves. Hurts is just one of these quiet guys where he's doesn't get too high for the highs, too low for the lows. He doesn't really make it about himself. He plays through injury. Even when he's not 100% out there, he just goes out there and does his job. He earned a lot of respect, I thought, from the Super Bowl performance he had last year, because I would say a lot of just, the media was kind of like, he's the quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, and he just really doesn't fit in within the loud Philadelphia culture in a sense. But I give that guy a whole lot of credit. The offense, most certainly, I would say, look good. It helps when you have a good offensive line in Saquon Barkley. Their defense. So the defense was kind of the area of the ball, or the area of the roster where they kind of had, they lost some decent guys. Jalen Carter got ejected on the Thursday night game for some stuff he shouldn't have done, spitting at Dak Prescott. But losing Milton Williams, losing some linebackers, some guys in the secondary, not a whole lot of pieces, but some guys that really made an impact for that roster last year that ended up getting paid in free agency elsewhere. That defense wasn't really all too impressive in a sense. Like, it's going to take some adjustments for them to mesh. But they're going to still be able to score. My takeaways with Dallas is that, hey, that's still a good offense. I think they're going to be able to score some points this year. That defense is atrocious. And I think Dallas, if you got fantasy football stock in if Dak Prescott, those 2 wide receivers with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, you're going to be set to go. The offensive line is still very young. But look, Dallas is going to be one of these teams this year, I feel like, where they're going to be undervalued in a bunch of spots because they lost Micah Parsons. Like, the defense was still crappy under Parsons last year. Like, we can't forget that. Like, he's still one of these guys where it's like, okay, I want him in the 4th quarter and he might make a winning play, and it might, impact a game or two this year in the 4th quarter when Dallas is in a tight game. But Dak was injured all last year. So, I think it was just kind of like the combination of everything going wrong for Dallas last year, and hell, they almost made the playoffs. So I do think like Dallas is going to be one of these teams this year where, hey, if you got fantasy football players on this team, you're going to be set, because they're going to put up a jillion points. They might be trailing from behind in a lot, and they're going to be forced to pass. But I do think Dallas is one of these teams where they're going to be 8-9 this year. and they're going to just kind of be in a bunch of these crazy games, and they'll probably barely miss the playoffs. Like Schottenheimer wasn't terrible, on Thursday night. Like he seemed to have that offense going. Like he didn't really make any tremendously bad decisions. And the Eagles, they're going to be there. So I just don't know if they're on that Super Bowl caliber level compared to some other teams. And I know it's only week one. We got to reevaluate things as weeks go forward, but we can't overreact at this point because Philly is still tremendously talented. Let's go to the polarizing Brazil game on the Friday night. Chiefs Chargers. Chiefs dropped this game 27-21. Credit to the Chargers. I know they've been lingering for all of these years to beat Mahomes and the Chiefs. Jim Harbaugh in year 2 out there in Southern California. He is 6-0 now in week ones. That's a pretty remarkable stat. The Chargers seem legit. I know a lot of people were kind of hitting the panic button when they had that Rashawn Slater injury on the offensive line, and I kind of don't blame people. Like he's a big part of what they do in the run blocking scheme and the pass blocking element as well. But they still got tons of depth there, like Zion Johnson, Bradley Bozeman at center, like Joe Alt. Like they're fine. And Greg Roman and that, just based on the scheme and stuff, they have to have depth at that position. The Chargers have, you can tell like the way Harbaugh builds his teams and everywhere he goes, it's always about the trenches. And you saw last year, like they still won 11 games and they like their wide receiver weapons were like C-, C+. And they prioritize that in the draft. They still got some young guys in there that I think will make an impact later, like a Keandre Lambert-Smith, like Trey Harris from Ole Miss, the second round pick. Bringing back Keenan Allen, I thought was so good for this team. And I know he's 30-something years old, and he's not the same guy that can go get you a 50-50 ball in man coverage like he used to. And he is a little bit more injury prone now, just with the age. But this is still a guy that's worked with Justin Herbert before, and you saw it immediately in week 1 in the Brazil game. 6 receptions, 68 yards, 10 targets, and a touchdown as well. So definitely a guy that knows Herbert's tendencies. And when you throw him in there with Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnston, who looked pretty damn good on Friday night, that's all of a sudden a passing attack that looks pretty good. And I have to say, Justin Herbert, like I've been waiting for this guy for a long time now because he was doing it with the Oregon Ducks years ago. And that was just utilize his legs. Like people don't realize how big Herbert is. He looks like that, like on, like you see it like on TV and stuff, but like, man, like when they get the close up of him, like in the huddle, you're like, why is this guy not running people over? And, a lot of that, I don't know what it is and what's been the issue. But I hope Harbaugh like told him like, dude, like you got to go out there and like extend plays and don't be afraid to like run somebody over because you're going to be bigger than mostly everybody else out there. And you got the speed and you got the physicality to do it. I mean, he had 7 carries for 32 yards, including that 19-yard scramble at the end of the game to ultimately seal it on 3rd and long. Like that's an element that Harbaugh and company have to utilize. It's going to make this team so much more better. And, when you throw in Quentin Johnston in there, that's why I think the Keenan Allen stuff is so important, that addition, because it's a guy, it's a wide receiver, and it's a threat out there that you have to honor. And I think ultimately with Keenan Allen being out there, it's unlocking this capability that Quentin Johnston was so good at TCU. And that was, hey, like, go get us something out wide. Like, go get us that 50-50 ball, on the outside. Because that's what they were doing with him at TCU, like with the Horned Frogs and like Sonny Dykes and company. They had Max Duggan at quarterback, and they would just throw him these go routes from like 40 yards out. And he was doing some other stuff beyond that, in this Brazil game against the Chiefs. But 5 receptions for 79 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like he just looked like that explosive threat from that Horned Frog team that ended up making the national championship like 3 years ago. So I think the Keenan Allen addition is making everybody else better. Of course, when you throw in a really good defense with a bunch of young pieces that was really good last year, and they didn't lose anybody really outside of Joey Bosa, who's right now like on the wrong side of 30. Like this is still a team that is you gotta fear, and with the coaching and based on the scheme, obviously they didn't even run the ball that good in this game because the Chiefs front is so damn good. But they have an opportunity this year, the Chargers, to win games in ways that they couldn't last year. As far as the Chiefs is concerned, this might be the year for hell for the Chiefs. And I know I keep saying it and saying it. You're talking to the Niner fan here, like that. Everybody keeps waiting for it. But you see that Rashee Rice is suspended 6 games, and like Kelsey, he's got engaged to Taylor Swift, but like you see the production from last week and then like last year as a whole, like he's just not the same threat. I feel like, they were kind of the Chiefs were so explosive early on when Mahomes was younger, and they kind of, teams adjusted to that. So they've started playing a whole lot more methodical and, hey, let's run the ball and let's go on these 7-minute drives. And the defense being so much more improved under Spagnuolo, they've been able to lean on it more. That defense, as good as it is and as well coached as it is, it's vulnerable as well. And at some point, the Chiefs offense has to come along. It was amazing to me that they played like their C- game, and like they still were only lost this game by 6 and had a chance to ultimately get the ball back. And they were a play from getting the ball back and potentially winning the game. But look, the Chiefs, I don't know. We got to monitor this stuff because Xavier Worthy, like he had like that crazy collision with Kelsey and he got immediately knocked out, which I think ultimately screwed up their game plan for them. All of a sudden you got Hollywood Brown having like 18 targets and stuff. If the Chiefs do have more wide receiver injuries, keep an eye on Jalen Royals. I know he was out for this game. I don't know if he's been battling an injury or inactive, but this is a guy they took in like the 3rd or 4th round. He was from Utah State. He's got that explosive ability that the Chiefs need. It could almost be like that replacement for Xavier Worthy. Worthy's obviously better. I think he's got a little bit more stuff in his toolbox that he could definitely use to his advantage. But the Chiefs, they got Mahomes. Like, they can nearly plug and play some of these wide receivers and still be okay. But look, we're going to monitor this stuff with the Chiefs. We're going to talk about the rest of their division. But their division is catching up to them. Denver's legit. The Chargers just beat them head to head. They never do. And the Raiders might be this frisky 8-win team this year. So we got to see. Those division games are going to be massive this year for them. And look, they went like 10-0 in 1-score games last year or some ridiculous number. I expect that to regress just because it always does. Buccaneers and Falcons. Let's fast forward to Sunday, and we're going to speed things up here a little bit. Buccaneers won 23-20. Crazy finish out there in the early window on Sunday. Massive for the division, obviously. Atlanta went 2-0 versus the Buccaneers last year, and Tampa Bay, this was a win that they needed to have just to kind of, solidify and, start things on the right track. Because that was a division race last year that came right down to the wire. So big win for Tampa, obviously. Tampa's battling injuries here in the preseason. Like, it was really good that they got this win versus their division rival, who's the most legitimate threat to win the NFC South. And they didn't have Jalen McMillan. They didn't have their best offensive lineman in Tristan Wirfs. They still don't have Chris Godwin from the ACL tear last year. They missed some guys defensively as well. Like, the fact that Tampa was still able to pull this off was incredible. Emeka Egbuka, rookie out of Ohio State. A lot of people have been loving this kid, which how can you not love wide receivers from Ohio State that come out of the draft? 4 receptions, 67 yards, 2 touchdowns in this game. Led the team in receiving yards and receptions. Defensively, you already know Coach Todd Bowles is always going to have his boys ready. Antoine Winfield made a massive pass breakup in this game, like late in the 4th quarter. That's the way the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to play. They were injured like tremendously last year on that side of the ball, and it wasn't really good. They were in a bunch of these shootouts. I expect this defense to bounce back. I expect this offense, when they're Like they won this game 23-20. Wait until everybody's healthy. This is going to be a legitimate team. And Baker Mayfield, I feel like he is one of the most clutch fourth quarter quarterbacks that no one talks about enough. Like he's had enough of these big moments, I feel like, in the regular season where he's going out there with his feet, running somebody over for game-winning first down to ultimately seal the game. He went on a 2-minute scoring drive in this one late when they were trailing, to ultimately put his team back in front. So I'm one of these people that I am extremely high on the Buccaneers and the upside that they have. The division is manageable. They're going to win the division, I personally think. And then you got to really take them seriously in January, I feel like. They've been threatening here for a while. I think the NFC is a little bit more vulnerable this year. There's not too many threats compared to the AFC as it's been the past couple of years. Tampa's a legitimate team, and they've only gotten better over the years. And they make all the right roster moves and transactions. Like we'd even talk about Mike Evans. He's the most consistent wide receiver like the past 8 years now. Like it's incredible what this team's doing, and it's really not getting enough attention, I feel like. Michael Penix Jr., I talked about him at the Open. Like I think he's a legitimate quarterback. I was a big fan of him at Washington. I think the Zach Robinson scheme like is going to work well for him just because he's got like the rushing capabilities as well as we saw in this game. I was impressed with him last year. I think you're starting to get him a little bit more comfortable. Him and the Drake London chemistry is ridiculous. Like you see the target share and the receptions that Drake London have. And he didn't even play like the final 2 drives of this game. Like he could have had like 14 catches in this one. I think he had like 8 or 10 grabs in this one in the loss, but my goodness, Drake London, I would expect a massive year from him just because Penix is his quarterback, and we saw that last year. So I like where Atlanta's at. Like they're going to be they just might be like one of these teams that's like in a bunch of high scoring affairs. I don't really know what to make of their defense just yet because they finally started drafting some guys on the D line. But I think this is going to be a team that is ultimately all over the place. If you got fantasy football stock in any of their skill position players, you'll be happy. But probably like a 7 or 8 win team that misses the playoffs when it's all said and done. Bengals Browns. Bengals win 17-16. The Bengals, this is a close game that they only had 7 yards of offense in the second half, and they still found a way to win. A game, Joe Burrow said it post-game, like, we wouldn't have won this game last year, which I think is the ultimate, thing for me. Like, hey, the Bengals might have some one-score game luck this year, which is important for them in the direction that they want to go. There's been a whole lot of preseason chatter about Cleveland just because of their polarizing quarterback situation, with Flacco and Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders and those 2 rookies that they have behind Flacco. But I want to talk about their skill position guys because everyone's talking about the quarterbacks and those rookies. And, I get it. I understand it. But Dylan Sampson, the running back from Tennessee, and Harold Fannin Jr., the tight end from Bowling Green, dude, like I was very shocked, like on the target share that these guys had in week 1. Like, I don't want to turn this into a fantasy football show, but like waiver wire, like go pick those guys up. Flacco seemed very comfortable with them. And it's not like it's one of these things too, like, okay, because Flacco's going to get replaced eventually. Guys like Sampson and Fannin got work with Shedeur and Dylan Gabriel. So I would not expect any of that to drop off. I do expect, Cleveland to be like one of these basement teams in the league this year. But Harold Fannin Jr. led the team in targets, 7 receptions, 63 yards. I was actually impressed with the Cincinnati Bengals defense because we all know, like, if you watched the league last year, this was a putrid defense. And the fact that their guys and their corners, like, were out here making some plays, I thought was pretty respectable for this unit. Like, they had, the Hendrickson, blow up sack. Shamar Stewart got all of his stuff resolved. He was out there blowing up the line of scrimmage. Their DBs were active against like the Cedric Tillmans and the Jerry Judys. taking advantage of some interceptions. Like they weren't getting beat in man coverage like as bad as they were last year. And this is a division game. These two teams know each other very well. So I expect the Cincinnati offense to click a little bit, but I think this defense, they fired Lou Anarumo. He's in Indianapolis now. Like I expect this unit to be better. So I would actually upgrade the Bengals a little bit more from where what were they, 9-8 last year, like 10-7, maybe 11 wins, maybe their ceiling. Because as good as their defense looked, or as improved as the defense looked, I still don't think it's a tremendous unit on the back end. So we'll see where they're at. But at the same time, Cleveland's no good either. And Cleveland special teams. I mean, geez, Louise. I mean, missed field goal, missed extra point. You can't have that stuff. And I just think overall, like week 1, that's like one of the big time storylines. Special teams was a joke. Like these field goal kickers, like they got to get better. And we see this from time to time, like the from as far as field goals, like the new 50 like years ago was like, oh my goodness. Now like that's translating into like 58s, but you can't be missing extra points and like 40-yard field goals now. Like there's too many good kickers out there like that don't have jobs. So I don't know. I don't understand like why some of these teams like my team that we're going to get into, like the 49ers, like have been, so I guess bullish in a sense of like just not even bringing like another kicker in. Like, I don't know. There's too many good kickers out there in all of these other leagues that you can go pick up. And they'll be better than some of the production that you see on Sundays. Dolphins, Colts. I do want to touch a little bit more on like more heavily on the Miami Dolphins, because this for me was like not the year from hell team, but like this was like the team where in the AFC where if you want a team like you want everything to go bad for and things to get squirrely quickly, this was my team. I was very down on the Miami Dolphins just from all the offseason storylines, just the way the roster's constructed, just the whole Tua injury history, Mike McDaniel. I think he's just one of these guys where he's a great offensive coordinator and a really good play caller, but you can tell that he just doesn't have a grasp within that room. Like he's just one of these guys where they pan the camera to him on these games every Sunday, and it's just him looking at his play sheet. So I'd really like to know like what's really going on in that room right now, because you could just see it's a whole lot of like guys that are just doing whatever they want. And I'm looking at a guy like Tyreek Hill. These guys got a bunch of like bad injury history, like defensively, like they're always banged up. Jalen Waddle got hurt in this game. Like Tyreek Hill like made a trip to the tent. Obviously Tua's injury history. Like it's just a poorly constructed roster. They had Teron Armstead on the left, like their starting left tackle, retire. I just think there's a whole bunch of bad vibes in Miami. And just based on who they have to face with the Bills, I think the Patriots will be improved this year. I think the Jets will be frisky. Like, I just don't value this team. And, there's just no toughness on this roster. Like, outside of their defensive line, like, there's just not really a whole lot to be impressed about. So they brought in Minkah Fitzpatrick, but that doesn't really upgrade too much things from a team perspective. This is a team that's got a whole lot of bad vibes right now. And quite frankly, like, I think it's going to only get worse. Like they got blasted by Indianapolis 33-8. They play the Patriots in week 2. They played the Bills in week 3 on a short week. Like this could get ugly fast. If you were to tell me, Nick, first coach fired, who you taking? I would say Mike McDaniel. This is not going to end well for Miami. And I think we'll be talking in from week 10 right now, and it's going to be very bad. Like they'll probably be on an interim head coach. Tyreek Hill might be out the door. It's going to look tremendously different here in 8 weeks. And this has been a domino effect now, like going back to the start of last year. And I think it's going to finally all, collapse and burn on this team. As far as Indianapolis is concerned, this was a team that actually very quietly spent a whole lot of money on defense last year, or during the offseason, excuse me. And it like actually like worked and it paid off in week 1. Like they spent on Nick Cross, led the team in tackles. Cam Bynum had an interception, was a big time leader for that Minnesota Viking team last year. They got Charvarius Ward, former 49er. Like he was shutting down the Dolphins wide receivers. They got Xavier Howard on this team. Like they just got like a bunch of these dudes that have been around, and some of these guys that have like eclipsed within the league that are on their first big contract. That defensive line still underrated. I feel like with Kwity Paye and the Latu kid, DeForest Buckner. Like they got some players on this defense. I guess the whole underlining problem with this team has been the offensive side of the ball with Richardson. But Shane Steichen's fighting for his job right now. Like it's year 3, like the clock is ticking. They got new owners now because Jim Irsay passed on. Like you're starting to get a sense right now, like with this new ownership group, like they promoted from within the Irsay family. Like it's his 3 daughters running it now. And like you're starting to see like they're going to be involved with the team. And it might get to the point like where they just might cut ties on Richardson, like forget about Shane Steichen, just like send the GM Chris Ballard out the door. Like it might get late early out there in Indianapolis. So they need results. And that's why they started Daniel Jones, because quite frankly, Shane Steichen likes these, I wouldn't say failures, but like these older, stiff quarterbacks, like within his system. Like you notice he succeeded with Gardner Minshew, and like he tried it like with Carson Wentz and stuff. Daniel Jones, I would kind of put him in that category in a sense, and like Jones is kind of trying to find that a new place for himself as well. I don't really buy too much into Indianapolis like long term and stuff. Like I think it was just more so of a Miami looking bad, and just the Colts having like anomaly, like a performance here, like an anomaly performance, like them scoring on every drive won't be sustainable and stuff. But Indy might be one of these teams. Like we always get one of these teams every year, and this is why I say like you can't overreact and stuff like that. Indianapolis might be like the New Orleans Saints from last year and the Washington Commanders from 2 years ago, where they start out 2-0 and then everything goes south. So that would be they would probably be my candidate for that, especially since how much headlines they got this week. So we'll see where we're at with that, but regardless, impressive performance and terrible for Miami. Raiders Patriots. Look, the Raiders, like they got some buzz with this team. They win this one 20-13. Pete Carroll, like, hey, welcome back to the league. Like he's won every debut that he's made, like with the new team and stuff, I believe. I have to say, like this, I think this Raider team, like they're starting to figure it out finally. Like 4 head coaches later and 3 GMs later, like I think they finally got the right people running the organization. Pete Carroll, like this is a guy where you want, like I would say, kind of a younger team and a team that hasn't really had too much success recently in an organization like the Raiders. It's the perfect fit for him. I think it's a great fit for the players, right? Because Pete Carroll is one of these guys where he's such a rah guy, energizer type of dude, despite his age. Like the young guys buy into him and stuff. Like you see people like Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer, like they all like him. Gino's really tight with him from his Seattle days and stuff. The fit just feels good right now for the Raiders. And I feel like the organization needs that. I do think like they finally got like some smarter people in the room finally after all these years. But hey, this team looked good. Like they got some sneaky good, like offensive skill position players. I shouldn't say sneaky good because we all know Brock Bowers is good, but like Michael Mayer as a tight end, Jacoby Myers, I think is like breakout potential this year. Like he's gonna be one of these guys you look back on like in week 17, you'd be like, wow, this guy's 1,000 yards this season. I'm a big fan of the Betch kid from TCU. Like that guy's been through a whole lot, like from a life perspective. Like he lost his brother in a tragic event, and just I just think the combination of the young talent, some veterans, like they've drafted well finally. The offensive line is still a work in progress. They got Crosby on the defensive line. He's a catalyst for this team. I do think like the division is very tough for them, but they're going to be one of these teams like 7-8 win tough out every single week. Um, Patriots really weren't ready in this game, which I found kind of surprising. I do like the Patriots though long term. Like I would say like my pick to win coach of the year would be Mike Vrabel. Like he always gets the most out of his teams. They spent on the defensive side of the ball. Like I expect that unit to be better just as we progress here. And like they're favored in every one of their games this year. Like a 4-win Patriot team last year. Like that's how the schedule breaks for them this year. So I like the upside overall. I think Drake May could be solid for them. Like he's shown some flashes last year, and I know a lot of people didn't watch the Patriots, but he was doing a lot for not a whole lot of stuff around him last year. I just think it might take a little bit to mesh here. They got a crucial game, I believe, versus the Dolphins week 2 on the road. So I would expect them to win that one. So we'll see how it goes. But the Patriots are going to be one of these frisky teams. And I just think like, hey, you're the second best team in the division behind Buffalo. And that for the most part, that's like a 9-win. That's like a 9-win team just because of all the wins and the way the schedule aligns. Cardinals Saints. So everybody knows that's been listening to this podcast for some time, or at least our NFL content, or just knows me personally. Like I got a soft spot in my heart for the Saints. Like I want the Saints to do good. But this is just one of these teams this year. Like they're not going to be any good. And it's one of these things too. Like this is why you love the first 3 weeks of the NFL season, because the teams that are projected to be bad, they don't know they're bad yet. Like there's still belief in the room, right? And the Saints got a lot of these aging veterans. Like they got the Cam Jordans, the Demario Davises. Some of the other dudes have retired, like Tyrann Mathieu, and they lost some guys on the offensive line that were older from the Drew Brees days and stuff. Derek Carr retired, right? Like I know different era and stuff, but there's still some belief like within the New Orleans room. Like I like the way their offensive line moved, and believe it or not, I would say that's like the strength of their team, right? Probably like both lines, the offensive line and the defensive lines, like the strength of that team. Their corners did not impress me. Like that is going to be a massive weakness for them this year. Didn't look good versus Arizona. Like Kyler Murray was just picking his spots in this game. I'm not the biggest Spencer Rattler guy. I was like in the early stages of him at Oklahoma, but the Saints, like their quarterback room is from top to bottom is not very good. I would expect them to regress as the season goes on, but like I told you, like they only lost this game by a touchdown. They had a chance to tie and or at least tie it with the touchdown and an extra point. I do think Arizona, like a lot of these teams, like they're the hipster team in the NFC this year, where like everyone thinks that they got breakout potential. I'm kind of like on the fence about it. Like I could see it happening, but like I'm not fully bought in to this team. I do think there's opportunity in the NFC West, but like I would say they're the third best team in the division. And what is that? Like 9-8, 8-9, like how they have been the past 2 years. So I'm not ready. I'm not really ready just yet to kind of put Arizona on that level. We'll see how they look here this upcoming week versus the Panthers. But Arizona did enough to win this game. Didn't impress me a bunch. And if anything, I was more surprised by New Orleans in a sense. But I don't know. The Saints got the Niners this week, and we'll get to the Niners here in a minute. But the Niners got some problems. Steelers Jets, fun game, 34-32. Aaron Rodgers, 4 passing touchdowns. DK Metcalf and company looking pretty solid. Jonnu Smith and Arthur Smith. That's been a marriage that's worked out pretty well, going back to several different places. Atlanta and Tennessee. Like, hey, I think I think the Steelers are going to be like pretty solid this year. Like, I think you're going to get a hungry Rodgers. Everybody says that they're all in. The most important player on this team is TJ Watt. If TJ Watt gets hurt, they're screwed. So, but you saw like everyone didn't understand the Fitzpatrick and Jalen Ramsey trade, and then Ramsey's over here making the game-saving play at the end of this one. You gotta love the NFL, right? Because this was like when you look at the games on paper, you're like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a 20-17 grudge match, and it turns into the gong show of the weekend from a scoring standpoint. So that's the NFL for you. But I like the Steelers upside and the Jets. I don't know if this offensive output is going to be consistent every single week, but I do think for them to win games, they're going to have to win like the 17-13 type games. Just kind of grind games out that way, which I think they're capable of doing. Like Aaron Glenn, defensive guy, they got tons of players on that defensive side of the ball. I was actually a little bit shocked like that the Steelers kind of tore him up the way that they did. But at the same time, Fields didn't look too bad. Like he's got the chemistry with Garrett Wilson going back to Ohio State. Breece Hall is hungry because of, just management and stuff, and he wants a new contract. So, just like a bunch of guys that got something to prove within that Jets locker room. And hey, maybe they're the surprise, here the team that scores a bunch of points that we really don't expect here the first couple of weeks. But I don't see that happening personally, but hey, fun game. Steelers win. The Steelers are going to win all of these close games. That's just the way that they do. They're extremely well coached, and that defense, like we say it every year, that defense is just really good, and they find ways. They plug and play. As long as they got TJ Watt, that's going to be a really good unit. Giants Commanders. Boring game. 21-6 Commanders win. The Commanders, despite winning this game by 15 points, didn't really impress me. It was just more so the Giants looking that bad. I'm still on the fence about the Commanders. Like, I understand, like, they got tons of depth on the offense. But their O-line didn't really look good. It was just a lot of, like, 2nd and 20s for them. Like, a lot of holding penalties. And then Jaden Daniels finding a way to get out of it. They had like the crazy 4th down conversion rate last year. I'd expect that to regress as the season goes on. Like there was just a bunch of performances and games last year where you're like, how did they win this? Like, and that's just not sustainable back-to-back years. Like, I'm sorry. Their defense, like they got some studs, they got some players, but like, I thought it was just more so the Giants looking terribly bad. Like Malik Neighbors is really good. I do expect them to move to Jackson Dart here pretty quick, just because you got a whole lot of jobs on the line here. Like Brian Dable's got to get this thing going, and I understand he's in a really tough spot and stuff, but like at some point you got to pass the baton to your young guys, and it's getting late early over there in New York. It's a very loud city. It's a fan base that's hungry for some wins. And otherwise, they're gonna. If it doesn't happen this year, they're gonna pull the plug and hit the reset button. I feel like, and that's why I think you got to make the move now. But the Giants didn't look good. Russell Wilson didn't look good, and I do think that the Commanders, them only scoring 21 points. I understand it's a division game, but I do think that's kind of like one of those scores where I would not buy into the Commanders. We'll see what they look like this week, but I just think they're going to be like one of those 8-9 win teams this year that barely cracks the playoffs. Like I really love the Deebo Samuel edition for them, and the Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt kid like got tons of buzz in training camp. Like I'd expect them to take over the backfield, but I don't know. They're just not going to win those close games like they did last year. So that's where I'm at with that. Panthers Jaguars. Jaguars are one of these teams, like I picked them to win the AFC South. I'm a big like Jaguar believer. I like Liam Cohen as head coach and play caller. I think Travis Hunter is going to be good, but I do think Trevor Lawrence is going to have a bounce back year as a whole. Jacksonville's kind of been like one of these teams, like they want to be good. They've been aggressive. I do think like the defense couldn't be any worse last year. Right? Like they were like one of the worst units in all of the NFL. It can't get worse than what it was last year. Like they were allowing like 40 points to the elite teams and stuff, and they were getting killed by everybody. And look, Jacksonville, like go look at the 4th down numbers from last year. They were horrendous. And, they had a crucial fourth down, like when this game was close between the Panthers, and they converted it. Like, it's just one of these. It's just one of these ordeals, like where if you have a bad year in like some statistical categories, like, and it's just like historically bad, like it's going to get better. And I just think from an organizational standpoint, like I like the Gladstone at GM. Like they got a young guy that can relate to players, but it has that analytical background as well, which I do think it's important. I think you need the happy medium of both, right? You kind of got to lean on the numbers, but you can't be over reliant where you're just crunching up numbers 24/7. Just because we are in an analytical world now. So I do think that's important for them. Like I said, I do think Cohen's going to be good. By the way, coach of the year, little wild card. Liam Cohen could be that guy. I understand it's just the Panthers. Like the Panthers defense, like they didn't make any moves defensively really to really move the needle. And you saw Travis Etienne kills him on the ground, 16 carries, 143 yards. Like worst rush defense last year, didn't even improve it during the offseason. And that just might be just based on, Carolina doesn't really want to bring in all these aging veterans and spend money in that area. But I don't know. Like you got a young quarterback in Bryce Young. Like the clock is ticking. And I know we showed some upside last year. And everybody was kind of like cautiously optimistic about him. But I don't know. The Panthers are just not there yet. I think they're like a 7-win team at best this year. So we'll see what happens. I'm a big Jaguar believer though. I think the production defensively will be better. And I think offensively, like Cohen's going to get this team on track. Like Brian Thomas, ETN, like they got their skill position is really good. Like they got De'Ami Brown, who flashed last year in the playoffs for the Commanders. They got some players, and you throw Travis Hunter in there, who I think is going to only get better. Jaguars got some breakout potential, especially in a wide open AFC South. Titans Broncos. Broncos win 20-12. Was not really impressed like with the Broncos offense. Like this was a unit last year that was really good against teams with the losing record and not so great with teams with the winning record. I like Bo Nix. I do like the offensive production that they added. Defensively, this is going to be the strength for this team. I don't think anyone's going to score in the altitude. Like you saw it, like Tennessee, like, and I know they're going to be offensively challenged this year, but only 4 field goals out there. Like this defense is this will be the number 1 defense in the league. I'm a firm believer in that, or at the very least top 5. Like the guys that they got, like Surtain's a shutdown corner, bringing in Hufanga and Greenlaw from the Niners. The defensive line's been good. Like the Broncos are very legit on the defensive side of the ball. Nick Bonito, like breakout star last year. I think Denver ultimately is going to win this division. Like, I do think they're the strongest team. I just didn't like the product that they put out there versus Tennessee. I didn't really like the game plan in a sense. Bo Nix wasn't great. I'd expect them to improve. But to me, this is all about the defense for Denver. Like, I don't think there's not going to be many teams that win in the altitude this year against the Broncos. I think it's just that simple. And I think their offense is going to do enough. And Peyton's been one of these guys. Like, I was very skeptical on Peyton just because of what he did to Russell Wilson and stuff. But man, this guy, like, he's been proving everybody wrong. And I have to say, like, I got to give him kudos. He's been proven, he's been shutting up a lot of people. So I'll give him some credit. But hey, I'd expect better days for the Broncos from an offensive side. And this Tennessee team, like, you can just tell, like, they just don't have the guns offensively, right? And, like, you kind of understand that. Like, Alec Iomanner's, like, your wide receiver, too. And I loved him at Stanford. But, like, he was, like, a 4th, 5th round pick for you. Like, that just tells you, like, just the depth that they have offensively for Cam Ward. And, Ward was actually like zipping it and stuff. Like he was getting pissed off at Ridley, like his dad was at least. So I'm a big believer in Cam Ward. I think he's going to have a fantastic NFL career. And I do think this Tennessee defense, like you saw it, like it was hanging. Like when you got like Tavondre Sweat and you got Jeffrey Simmons combining for like 650 pounds of body weight, like you're seeing that's tough to run on. So I do think this Tennessee defense is going to keep the Titans in some games this year. It's just offensively, are they going to have enough? And I do think in certain spots this year, like they will, just because like that's a underrated unit for the Titans defensively. It's just a matter of offensively, right? Like Cam Ward's got to get he's just got to build that chemistry with his guys a little bit more. But at the same time, that's just a lackluster wide receiver room right now. It's going to take some time out there in Tennessee, but I do think if everybody thinks this would be the worst team in the league, it won't. This will be like a 6, maybe even 7-win team this year. I really feel like it. I don't really put too much into Callahan, really. I don't think he's the guy personally at head coach. I do think when the Titans are on the right move and they're starting to build this thing for real, they'll get a more legitimate guy. I think he's just here for the rebuild. 49ers and Seahawks. You already know my San Francisco 49ers. I actually felt pretty confident about the Niners in this game. They win 17-13, just to the point where it won't be easy. It's a divisional game, but Purdy's good against Seattle, especially in Seattle. He'll rally the troops and get it done, and he did. Purdy wasn't he was actually really good in this game, and I know he had 2 interceptions. One of them wasn't, or he had the 1 pick, I believe it was. It was a hell of a play by Ernest Jones, the Mike linebacker. That's just Mike McDonald, scheming him up and figuring out Purdy. There's 2 guys that know how to game plan for Purdy, and Purdy hasn't figured him out yet, in a sense. Mike McDonald and the Vikings defensive coordinator, Brian Flores, right? The Brian Flores, the all-out blitz or the drop everybody back. It's the all or nothing defense, and a lot of young quarterbacks struggle with it. Purdy's faced it twice now, and he hasn't cracked the code on it. That's a tough scheme to beat. You got to give Flores a whole lot of credit. That's why the Vikings are going to be really good this year, I feel again, because of that, all or nothing approach. But the Niners, you're starting to see, I don't know what it is with this team, man, but they're just always injured. Doesn't matter. And it's not whatever, they got a bunch of injury prone guys. I get it. But it's just, this is before the Shanahan era and stuff. When they had when they were in their terrible days, with Jim Tom Sula and Chip Kelly, it was this. And you're my goodness, this is the practice squad that we're rolling out here in week 15 because just everybody's injured. So this is where the Niners are at. George Kittle's on the injured reserve. Brock Purdy might not play week 2. You saw in some stretches, Fred Warner's getting stitched up. It's my goodness, can we survive a week here? So look, the Niners were it's next man up mentality. They overcame some special teams woes, which I mean, they got themselves and they're going to get themselves a new kicker now because Jake Moody just got waived by the Niners. It's one of these things with Jake Moody. He was really good in college. I was defending him for a long time. His preseason was very erratic. He drills a 59-yarder versus the Raiders in preseason week 2. And then he's out here shanking extra point misses. I don't really know what to make of that, but I've talked about it a bunch just over the years and stuff. And the kicking position is all about confidence. And I think it's just a kid where, he heard the outside noise, the pressure got to him. Then the fan base just really didn't like him from the start. And a lot of that, is just kind of the Niners' fault for taking him way too high in the draft. So there was just kind of these expectations for him, oh, the Niners took him in the 3rd round. You better hit everything, right? So there was just kind of that underlining narrative on him from the start. And, when you don't produce like that, it's the NFL. It's a harsh business. And the Niners gave him tons of chances. They gave him more chances than what they should have. And, it was to the point where it's all right, And there was a couple of games even last year where the field goal kicking, like you couldn't trust them to the point where you had to go for it on fourth down. And Coach Kyle hates to go for it on fourth down. He is like, as far as like the go for it on fourth down, he is as conservative as it gets, Coach Kyle Shanahan. So I would say like it was time. They got to figure out this kicking situation. Who in the heck knows it's going to be? But I will say this from the Niners perspective. If you're going to get injured, like, and you're going to put all these guys on the IR, just get it done and over with now. Because I think we all know the plan for this team. Like, if they're healthy and they're in the playoff race and they get into the playoffs, this is a dangerous team. And the schedule is very favorable for them this year. They got the most easiest strength of schedule. Even if you don't win a division, which I think would be more ideal for this team, but they're more than capable. Just get into the playoffs and let's just see what happens. So we'll see. But overall, defensively, like Robert Saleh, big time acquisition. Like the most important offseason move for this team was Robert Saleh, because you're seeing like it instead, like they just needed that confident guy that kind of just, especially for the young guys, because this is a very young defense now. Like the Niners have gotten to the point like where they've prioritized paying Purdy and Kittle and McCaffrey and Jennings and Ayuk and Fred Warner and Nick Bosa. Like the paperwork's off the charts for this team. So you can't keep guys like Greenlaw and Hufanga anymore. And, they've let some other guys walk that they probably wanted to re-sign, right? But, they just ultimately can't. And, those 5th, 6th round guys that want to get paid that they've hit on, right? Like they're going to go elsewhere. As much as they probably love the area and the weather and, the team culture, they got to look out for themselves, and I don't blame them a damn bit. And it's to the point right now, like the Niners, like with them hitting the drafts, especially in the mid to late round draft guys, like the years have caught up. Like they had their window, and I'm not saying the window is gone right now. I do think right now we're probably on like the very back end of it right now, like with this core, just because like it's getting very old, like it's getting old now. So like I'd give them this year. We'll see what the vibes are like next year and what the paperwork looks like. But like you're starting to see like with all these younger quarterbacks and all these other teams, like the Niners need everything to go right, and they got to get away from the injury bug. The problem is like they have the injury bug every single year. So get the injuries out of the way now. Like Purdy's injured. Like if he misses a couple games, so be it. Mac Jones, like he's got McCaffrey back there. He's got the offensive line. He's got the run scheme to make it work. Defensively, like having Saleh there is going to only bring confidence for guys like Upton Stout and D Winters and, just the rest of the guys, right? Lenore to the point right now is he's a shutdown corner. And I'm glad like the Niners were able to keep him and stuff. So, well, we're going to see where this is going to be a good unit defensively because Saleh is coaching it, and you're going to see like these young guys are going to be a big part of what they do. I think D Winters is going to be really good for the Niners. Like overall body of work this year from start to finish, he's going to be very good. It's just a matter of can he stay on the field, of course. So I like the upside with the Niners. I think the defensive line will be solid. Like they bringing in Bryce Huff, I think will be big. Michael Williams, I know he's been sidelined, but like they got some guys that have been waiting their turn. Obviously Bosa's the catalyst in that unit, but this is gonna be a good defense for the Niners this year. And it's just a matter of can they stay healthy, and the schedule certainly aligns for them. As far as the Seattle's concerned, this is my sell everything on Seattle. Like I was a big Sam Darnold fan, and if you recall, like you could go listen to our like NFC preview from last year on this channel, and we said the Vikings are the prime breakout candidate to do special stuff this year because I thought Darnold fit in that Kevin O'Connell scheme tremendously, and just with the weapons and the defense with Flores, like the stars were aligned for the Vikings to do some big things last year, and look what they did. They won 13 games in the regular season. Darnold, like I understand, like he wanted to go get his contract in his bag and his money because who knows when you're going to get it, and you're on the 1-year prove it deal. So go get your money, my man. But I just don't know if this, I guess, scheme in a sense really works for him. I really didn't like it that the fact that he went to Seattle, like you're starting to see right now, like Seattle, like this past offseason, shoved everybody out the door. Like all the veterans that they had from the Pete Carroll era, they're gone. Like this is Mike McDonald's people now, right? And like you're starting to see like the offensive line loses them the game. Seattle basically like restructured their roster in a sense, like pushing out like, Lockett and Metcalf and some of their older defensive guys, and they lost the games the same way they did last year. So, and when you just look at the Rams and the Cardinals and the Niners, like, I'm sorry, like Seattle, like you're just not one of those teams in the NFC right now. Like I would expect you to be 7-10, to be quite honest with you. So, that's where I'm at with the Seahawks. We'll see what the whole Darnold fit looks like going forward, but I didn't personally like the move for him. But hey, it is what it is. Lions Packers. Man, I have to say the Packers looked very good last week. Defensively, I think that's gonna be a top 5 unit, especially when you add Parsons in there. Even before Parsons, though, I really like the upside of that defense, like what and just top to bottom what they have. But just drafting Matthew Golden and the Packers were just one of these teams, like they went out and addressed their needs. And Jordan Love being a year older, they never miss on these quarterbacks, like him getting a little bit more better, building the chemistry with his weaponry. The Packers are very funny because they don't have like one wide receiver. Like they don't have the wide receiver one where that's going to wow you away, but they got like 6 really good, like solid wide receivers. So like they're one of these unpredictable offenses. Like that's why I tell people just don't mess with the Packer wide receivers in fantasy. Because it could be Jaden Reed one week. It could be Matthew Golden another week. Could be Romeo Doubs the other week. Could be Tucker Kraft, their tight end, for all we know. And then you get deeper in the depth chart, you're like, wow, like they got some really solid pieces here. Josh Jacobs, we know is really good. He got lowballed by the Raiders, and he's been having something to prove ever since then. So I just think, and like with LaFleur too, like this is a really consistent head coach, right? Like whether you play Rodgers or Love, they're solid all over the place. They really don't have a weakness, really. So Green Bay's a legitimate contender here long term. And as for Detroit, look, it was a disastrous week for Detroit, and everyone's gonna look at the Ben Johnson stuff and losing Aaron Glenn, and their defense wasn't impressive, but their offense was a joke. It'll get better. The offensive line is a little bit worrisome because, they lost some guys. Ragnow retired. They just lost some important pieces there. I do think ultimately, like, it's going to take a few weeks to mesh, right? Offensive lines always take some time to mesh. So by week 5, I do think this team will be humming. Like, offensively, they'll be going. So I don't really worry too much about Detroit long term. I do think, like, last year was their year. Like they had everything go right, and they knew they were going to lose both coordinators last year. And look what happened. Like they lost them both. I don't have Detroit being that team this year, but I do think they're going to be good. So that's kind of where I'm at with them. Last year was the year to do it, and Jaden Daniels, like completely third partied everything that you had going on, and that's that. Texans Rams. Look, as much as I am one of these Niner fans, but like you can't ignore, like I got to give a whole lot of credit to like the Rams, because this rebuild for them, like ever since the Super Bowl, like I've always used like the reference, like, hey, the Rams were the team, like when they went all out and they ran up the credit card bill for the Super Bowl, and it worked, right? And like the year after, like you can just see, like during the COVID year, it was, or the year after that, the 2021 season, it was just one of those years, like they were paying off all the credit card depth from all the guys, right? And then all of a sudden they just hit the draft, like in all of these different places, right? And like all of a sudden, like they're in the equation again. Here's the bottom line, like with the Rams. If they have Stafford and McVay, they're going to always be in the conversation. And as long as they have, I would say, like one of the wide receivers, like Nakua, they're going to always be there, just because they're that good. Defensively, I do think like they got a bunch of young guys, but like man, that unit is underrated. I think you saw it versus week 1 versus Houston. So I like the Rams long term. Like the Rams are one of these teams, like even if they don't make even if the Niners win a division or whatever, like if they come second in the division, like and they're in the wild card, they're the one team you would trust to like go win like 3 road playoff games. And like they almost did it last year. Like they got to the second game and gave Philly the best shot, and Philly won the Super Bowl. So I love the Rams upside every year as long as like they got the coach, the quarterback, and one of the wide receivers healthy. And we've seen now like McVay, like this guy, the McVay tree, the McVay coaching tree is getting pretty big now. Like it is off the charts. So I love the Rams like this year, like just their upside, like going forward. Like if they get into the playoffs, they're one of those teams I would be circling to win the NFC. Uh, if the circumstances and the stars align, of course, but I like that team a lot. And as far as the Houston Texans is concerned, they're just one of these teams, man. Like they took advantage of the crappy division, and I do think like Jacksonville's better than them. Houston, like you got banked up at the wide receiver position. Your offensive line was a mess, and you didn't really accomplish anything with that. Like I was shocked that they traded John Mechie. Like they traded John Mechie to the Eagles. Do the Eagles really need him? Not really. Like they could have used him. Like you got Nico Collins and you got Xavier Hutchinson and you got Christian Kirk, which I don't know where he's at right now as far as producing. Like I was just shocked how reliant Houston was on Nick Chubb because he just got there like 3 weeks ago. Right. So like I don't know where Houston's at right now. Like Stroud, he had the tremendous rookie year, but like, man, he can't get pass protection. I don't care how good you are. Like if you don't have a good offensive line in front of you, like unless you're Lamar Jackson, like where you could just make things happen, I don't really know what to make of it. And Stroud's got wheels, but he doesn't have like the insane athleticism. So like I think in Houston's defense is awesome. Like it's awesome under D'Amico Ryans. Like that's what's gonna keep him in games, and that's what kept him in this game. Like I do think Houston's gonna be in a lot of these 17-14 type games, and I don't think they're gonna come on the right side of them more often than not. That offensive line has to improve and it has to get better quick, along with their wide receiver weapons. Otherwise, I don't know where this team's going to go. It very well could miss the playoffs. Ravens Bills. My goodness, what a freaking football game. 41-40. The Bills win. We're down like 15 points with like 4 minutes left. This just might be the Buffalo Bills year. I have to say, like when you see like Highmark Stadium, like that stadium that's been around forever. Oh, we got one more year in it before we move across the street to the new the new stadium that everyone's building now, like the same, model type where with the retractable roof and stuff. Like all the NFL stadiums are going to look the same. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm personally one of these outdoor football guys. Like football needs to be played outside, but then I go walk in the SoFi Stadium and I'm like, wow, this is beautiful. So like whatever, it is what it is. We all know all these teams just want to host the Super Bowls and just be able to put more concerts in their respective, locations and stuff. So I get it from a business model standpoint, like it's good and stuff, and it's a more modern type facility. But it is what it is. But regardless, the Bills 41-40 victory, incredible comeback. Josh Allen is just incredible. Like just take advantage of what you have with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. As far as like going forward, like with these teams, like they're going to be in the conversation. Bills are going to win a division. The Ravens are going to win their division. Like they're heads and shoulders above everybody else around them, from a roster perspective, and just everywhere else in between. But I have to say, like, I do have some worries about both of these teams. And I know, like, there's not much you can nitpick about them. But, like, I will say, like, the Bills, their secondary, like, has always been a problem against, like, these elite teams. I understand that the corner position's banged up, but like you got to figure out that safety position quick because you saw Cole Bishop just look lost out there. Taylor Rapp, like he tried to go after Derrick Henry and stuff, and like obviously a lot of people aren't gonna tackle Derrick Henry, but like my goodness, like they just have so many defensive breakdowns. The Bills do, especially on the back end against these playoff teams, and that's why you see like there's only so many times Josh Allen can play hero ball, right? And he plays hero ball in a bunch of these games, and he's always on the wrong side of it. As far as the Ravens is concerned, like I don't know what it is with this, like with John Harbaugh in these fourth quarter. Like he has like these 2 possession leads and they've dominated the whole game and then they just can't close it out. I like these teams long term, but like it's one of these things like this is why Kansas City is always in the Super Bowl every year because they always just gag, in January because of these issues, right? Or the Ravens have like that one crappy game last year, like right versus the Bills, where they have the defensive breakdown or the turnovers. Like Lamar doesn't play good. So there's always something, I guess, but like I want these teams to be good and I want them to like go out and because I want parity within the NFL. It's just a matter of can they go out there and do it, but they always seem to always get in their own way in a sense, right? And a team like Kansas City that is so well coached and defensively, like they're just a little bit more fundamentally sound than all these other teams. And Mahomes is that damn good. Like they find a way to just nitpick and just get over the top against everybody. So, I mean, I do think like if you're going to tell me, Nick, make a Super Bowl right now, I'm going Buccaneers and Bills. I have to say, like, I just like the upside of both of these teams, and it just might be like that year for Buffalo. Like you see Josh Allen getting married. He won the MVP. You kind of feel like he's on that tier 1 status right now. Just for what he does and all these clutch moments and stuff, like especially in the regular season. Like he's got the Super Bowl on his mind. And I do think like this just might be the year for the Bills, but then I look at them like in a sense, like how they play defensively versus like the Bills in this game. You're like, oh boy, like this is why the Bills are never there in the end. So I like these teams. Like I said, we'll just cross that bridge when we get there in January, I guess. Vikings and Bears. I mean, the Vikings win 27-24 last night. We're recording this on a Tuesday afternoon. And the Vikings, like they're going to be just fine. Like with JJ McCarthy, like this is a really good coaching staff. Like of course, Kevin O'Connell comes from the McVay tree. So like all of these McVay guys, like all these coaches from the McVay tree are for the most part, like very smart, in a sense, like as far as like they got like the football IQ, right? Like they can evaluate their talent. It takes that first year is kind of always a little bit rough for them, right? Like you saw Zach Taylor, like you saw O'Connell, like you're seeing with like, I know Zach Robinson's not a coach yet, but like his first year as the OC, like in his first step up position wasn't really that good, right? Like all of these guys, like it takes some time to adjust and that's okay. But like you're starting to see now, like what is this year 4 with O'Connell now in Minnesota? Like he understands what the operation that they're running. And that's why he ultimately said, hey, we got Darnold on the prove it deal. We saw him like he torched everybody in the regular season. And then we saw in the playoff game, like, the Rams schemed him up pretty good and they blew things up. And, it made our decision much easier. I'm a big believer in JJ McCarthy. Like, and I know like everyone wants to point to like his stuff in Michigan and stuff. And like, wasn't like wildly impressive, like at Michigan in a sense, but like, he was coached under Jim Harbaugh and stuff. That Michigan Wolverine team, and like it's still built like this. Like it's run first. His wide receiver weapons, like Michigan has never been like the team to like go recruit like 5-star wide receivers either, right? Like they're very much like, hey, offensive line, running backs, and we're gonna have our whole defense be extremely good, top to bottom. And as long as we have a quarterback to go do it, we're gonna make it happen. So like McCarthy wasn't really in that system. What we've learned now with Kevin O'Connell now is like it's one of these like quarterback friendly systems. Like it's almost like you're built to succeed. And like you're starting to see like there's like with the Vikings, there's not too much of a weakness. Like everyone, that's why everyone's talking about JJ McCarthy so much. It's because like you look at the line, you look at the wide receivers, like the running back depth is solid. Defensively, like with Flores and like the personnel that they have surrounding it, it is really good, right? So the Vikings, like they're gonna be in the conversation in there again. I'd expect it. Like this is going to, I personally have them, they're gonna be in the hunt with, I feel like, Green Bay to win a division. I think I picked them to win the division. With our buddies on the radio show. Shout out to our with Jonathan and Lewis on our Thursday radio show at KSJS. But I do think McCarthy is built to succeed. Like he's got so many pieces around him, and he's got a bunch of veterans around him, which I think is so important for him. And what people don't realize about JJ McCarthy as well, this guy like played hockey. Like so he and you like you saw uh in the Monday Night Football game last night. You're like, my goodness, this dude's freaking huge. Right? So like and you saw it like with this rushing touchdown. He is more than capable of going and running somebody over and making something happen. It's just like one of these things, right? Like when you don't play football for 600 days, you don't do anything. Like if you how do I explain this? But it's like one of these things, right? Like if you've been playing something your whole life and like something holds you back, like an injury, right? And you're not involved with it for 600 days, there is going to be an adjustment period, right? Like that's just the way it is. And you saw that it took him 3 quarters for him to settle in, and then you saw that 4th quarter. He went out there, manufactured drives, made stuff happen, and did his thing and won the football game. So I expect him to only get better from here. Like I said, I'm a big believer in him. And I just think like the roster is built around him to succeed, which I think is the most important. And you want that in a young quarterback. He's in a really good situation compared to what Cam Ward's in right now. It's going to take Cam Ward like a year from now, maybe even 2 years to get to where he is. Like for JJ McCarthy, this thing could click quick because of what he has around him. And that's very rare, right? Because the Vikings were, for the most part, like a really like solid team, right? They only got the high draft pick because of the Kirk Cousins injury, and it was just one of those things. Like they were in the deep quarterback draft, and McCarthy just kind of fell right into their laps. And he was supposed to play last year, and then toward the ACL, and then they went and signed Darnold, and Darnold flashed within this offense, and I expect the same from McCarthy. The beauty of the Vikings now is that you got this kid on a rookie contract. So now you could really just go all in and really try to make it work. He just can't make the mistakes, right? And you saw he can get away with the mistake like a team like Chicago, right? Because Chicago, I mean, come on. Some things just never change. And like you're starting to see like the Caleb Williams stuff is taking longer than what everybody anticipated, right? Like now all of a sudden you got a new head coach in Ben Johnson. Like he's making mistakes himself. Like it's just a learning curve for everybody right now. And like you're starting to see like they got some weapons now, right? Like Roman Tunze's a year older. Offensive line, they spent money. Defensively, they're good, which I have to say, that Bears defense is going to be good all year, right? We talked about this. There's certain guys where that were not so great head coaches, but that their spot is to be a really good coordinator, right? And I think Mike, you're going to find out we're finding out Mike McDaniel's in that tier with guys like Arthur Smith, Dennis Allen, and Yeah, there's kind of like another guy like within that name that I'm forgetting on the top of my head. That wasn't a great head coach. I would put Brian Flores in that tier as well, right? There are just certain guys that are, have the football IQ, are, so really good at what they do at from a schematic standpoint, but they kind of get that step up in the head coaching spot like position. And then some of these guys just can't really lead a room, right? So and that's how it was with Dennis Allen. Like he got two shots. He had the Saints gig and the Raiders gig, and they both weren't good. But you saw like when he was the Saints defensive coordinator prior to him getting promoted, he was really good, especially on the back end of the Drew Brees era. And I think he's here. Like you see him, he's got juice. Like he's over here scampering up on the sidelines for his Bears defense, making some plays. So I do think that's going to be a very strong unit for the Bears this year. The defensive side of the ball, just who knows what we get with this offense. And I do think it's going to be more bad than good. And especially with this division, that's why I got the Bears kind of where they were last year, like 7-10, 8-9, around that tier. I would say 7 wins for this team, quite honestly with you. And I don't know if we see those strides with Caleb Williams, because that was the thing with Caleb Williams, right? He, like, in college, he could get away with all of this crazy stuff, right? Go ring around the rosy, 20 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and then all of a sudden showcase his cannon of an arm and throw a bomb to like a guy like Zachariah Branch at USC, right? And that's why he won the Heisman, right? You can't get away with that crap in the NFL. And, we've seen him, like we saw it last night. Like he makes this ridiculous third down throw where he just zips it straight to a Odunze, and he toe taps his way in the sideline. And then you see like just like the simple stuff, like, dude, just go through your reads, and hey, first read isn't there, second read isn't there. Oh, here's my tight end, 5 yards, like down the field. Let me zip it to him like on like 2nd and 6, and let's get a third down and short. But then he has like the silly incompletion. Like it's just the simple stuff with Caleb Williams. And, the simple throws, just going through the reads, stuff like that. He's got to get the ball out quicker, right? That's been the issue with him. And it just really hasn't worked out yet. And that's what the challenging thing is right now in Chicago, because there's a lot of impatient people in Chicago right now that want it to happen right now. And because there was so many high expectations for this guy, like they want it to work now, because the Chicago Bears are itching for some good football. And I don't blame them as a fan base. But I just think we praised Caleb Williams too much from what the production that we saw at USC, and against like the Pac-12 defenses, like were a joke. So when the Pac-12 defenses that he saw 2-3 years ago versus what he's seeing now in the NFL is completely different, obviously. And that's why it's taking time. And you're seeing right now, like it's only year 2 right now. But it might take a whole nother year before he really progresses in that area, because quite honestly, Ben Johnson has got to walk him through all that stuff. And I think Ben Johnson at the same time has to get better as a head coach, because like you saw with all that clock management stuff last night, these young head coaches, like when you're an offensive coordinator, you're only worried about that. And you all of a sudden you got to worry about, the voices in the room and maintaining that. And hey, how are you going to handle things when, you're on a losing skid? There's so many more responsibilities as a head coach. And while you're the play caller at the same time, especially for a first-year head coach in a place like Chicago, the situation and the circumstances are a little bit more difficult than what you were in, just simply with the play sheet in front of you in Detroit. And with that division as well, I'm sorry, the Bears fans, it's going to take a little bit more time. But hey, that's just a nice 84-minute rundown on NFL Week 1. I do want to continue to bring this, just my thoughts on games and stuff like that, because you're going to see these teams are going to change quickly, right? There's going to be some clunker performances, and especially like the first 3 weeks. I always tell people, don't overreact. And, I'm, of course, like we're all guilty of overreacting, right? But like you're gonna see like a team that's dominant in week 1 is gonna go on the road and they might stink the bed in week 2. And then all of a sudden in week 3, that like a team like the Indianapolis Colts, they might start out 2-0, but then they might completely fall off the face of the earth. And then we look at them in week 13 and they're 5-6, or or even worse. So this is the beauty of the NFL. It's the inconsistency of it all. Things can change fast. You could lose the room quick, but you can also flip your season like that and get hot at the right time, and then all of a sudden you put yourself back in the playoff picture. So this is why the games are so great. It's such a situational league, right? Every game is different. By once when you throw in bye weeks and the Thursday night stuff, it just becomes very different, right? Especially when you throw in the division element and everything else in between. So that's what makes the NFL great. I think we're going to get a great product this year. There's just so much talent now, and the quarterback talent is only getting better now. So hey, very much looking forward to it. We'll be back next week, recapping the week 2 games when it's all said and done, and we'll be back later this week, of course, breaking down the college football slate and talking things within that nature. So if you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, share your input on whatever. Always appreciate the love and everything that for all the support. Very much appreciated. I don't get paid a dime to do this. Not that I'm asking for, any of that stuff. This is just straight from me. This is just the passion of me, coming out here and talking about the games. And, I'm just a fan when it's all said and done, when it comes to, college football and the NFL. And, these are humans at the end of the day that go out there and, get to do what they want to do. And I'm just here to, document their success. So this is what makes sports so great. It's the best reality TV show. So that's why we're here, and we're not going anywhere. So very excited, for everything going forward, because look, we're in the second week of September right now. It's only going to get more fun and chaotic, and there's going to be so many more storylines. So come along for the ride. We're going to definitely be here all throughout it. So can't wait for it. It's only getting better, and the trajectory is only up from here. So that will do it for us here on the Sports Sentiment. Once again, I am your host, Nick Urias, and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.